Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. I apologize if you're asking a question on Sunday because I'm actually recording this on Saturday. It's because my streamathon is starting up on Sunday. That's where I'm going to be doing the Final Fantasy Shuffler, where I play Final Fantasies 1 through 9 all at the same time, but it randomly shuffles which game I'm playing, and it can happen at any given moment. That's going to be like 12-hour streams every day as long as it lasts until the timer runs out. So I wanted to make sure I had as many videos prepped for next week as possible. I already have a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, recording a Friday video after this. Saturday would be the State of the Realm upload, plus the following Monday. So basically I got like 8 or 9 days of videos already guaranteed. And then the predicted date for 6.45 would be the 18th. If that ends up coming true, then, you know, I'm going to be live for those days super long anyway. So I've just got a lot of stuff that's already in the works. So I'm like way more prepared for this than I was the last time. But I'm also not going in expecting much. You know, I'm not pushing it on social media super hard or, pushing it here on YouTube to tell you to go over there other than the weekly Q&A. I will probably make something for that later tonight just because I can. But yeah, I mean, it's just because I don't normally do this stuff. So figured I'd give it a shot. Count up, I kind of tried, but I just wasn't prepared enough. So we'll see how it goes. But either way, I just wanted to put that here. If you want to tune into the live stream and just check it out or support said live stream, you're more than welcome to. If not, maybe we'll have some fun highlights to come out and become shorts or something here on YouTube, or I'll just make some sort of highlight video of certain experiences there if there's like any high points or anything funny that happens. But either way, since I'm recording this on Saturday and I have a lot to get done, I think we should get into the questions. Thank you to our sponsors over on Patreon. You do not have to support, but I do appreciate those of you who do. I had a super chat throughout the week or whatever they call it on YouTube now, but I don't think it was on the weekly Q&A. I think it was on another video. Whichever one it was, I'm not 100% sure, but thank you to that person as well. And yeah, it doesn't look like we have too many questions, so I don't think this will be too long of a video. And every time I say that, it's 45 minutes long. So without further ado, let's get started. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hi. Thanks for such a detailed response on my ultimate quality question. No problem. I don't even remember it. Once the week has gone by, that's it. It's out of my mind. Now something a little more personal. Okay. As I improve as a raider, I'm noticing that more and more of my deaths and mistakes are coming from me spacing out and getting distracted after long periods of raiding. Because I eventually want to start trying week 1 Savage groups, I really further see this being a huge problem. Do you have any tips on improving focus? Seems like very much my biggest weakness. It's very hard to improve focus because a lot of the times it boils down to stuff. I know a lot of people who have actually discovered they have things like ADHD and whatnot through raiding because they become curious about their attention span, but and then they just go out of their way and they go and pursue to see if they have a diagnosis of some kind and whatnot. So that could be tough. I mean, anything I say could almost automatically not work. For me, it's just a matter of getting so comfortable that it requires less of your attention to perform set activities. And then as you're progressing through more serious content, like week 1 content where there's a bit more pressure, then your brain kind of automatically focuses a little bit more because there's an increased intensity in the activity that you're doing. But the only other thing you can really do is just practice. And if you're struggling, I also say that maybe your UI, I see what I do is I actually squish my UI closer to the center of the screen because all the flashing lights and everything kind of keep my attention focused into the center of the screen. Now, I don't need that much anymore, but that was the original idea behind my UI, and I've kept it since just because I don't want to imagine, the idea of going back the other way. So those are just a few things, adjusting the UI so certain elements keep your attention focused forward. Just practice on the mechanics, especially like maybe trying old Savage fights you haven't done before. So you have to go through the learning experience so you get more in tune with that exact environment. And other than that, it's finding something that just helps you keep your focus. Some people I know actually focus better when they have like their own music open, or they have even like a YouTube video on the side, which you think would hurt them. But for some people, it puts their mind at like a state of like a status quo, I suppose, where they're able to just like do this like back and forth. And because they're, no matter what, they have to think about going back and forth. It allows them to focus on one thing they're doing a little bit more. I don't know. It's weird. I've had people describe it to me and it wouldn't work for me, but I also stream. So I'm used to like reading chat at the same time. This is one of those things that is so person to person that you can only just try every idea until something sticks. And you have no idea which one's going to work. So you just got to try them out. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Scratching Post. Yeah, you have no idea. It's getting worse by the day. Hello there. Hi. Now that Ultimate Weapon has had its redesign for more than a year, I'm assuming you mean what is now the solo instance in the MSQ. I've been wondering, hoping whether the devs will add stricter item level syncs to the other XO final trials. I know item level sync was a lot more needed for Ultimate due to the greater difference between minimum and maximum. I mean, Ultima used to be part of Praetorium. No one cared because you just mow through. No, I don't. I don't think so. I don't think there's a reason. The only thing is, and actually, I think this is already mandatory, is making sure that you go out of your way to collect the left side pieces that you're guaranteed, the synced pieces. I think other than that, which I think is already mandatory, then I think that's fine. I mean, then they have to remember to equip them, but you can only do so much on that front, other than make the minimum item level something that's equatable to just as if you had those pieces on, but that doesn't really work. No, I don't think so. And I don't think they really need to, because more often than not, the item level sync isn't the problem. Having no idea what you're doing because you're either A, new, or B, bad, or C, don't remember because you haven't done it in a while, is always going to be more a factor than whatever item level stuff that you have on. As for my question, are there any trials, dungeons, raids you would like to see a stricter? I don't know, because I don't think we need it. I don't think there's any benefit to it. I do think there should be a minimum, so you can't be like doing level 60 stuff on level 50 gear if you're just going in through the duty finder. Like, there needs to be some minimum, but there's no point in making it stricter because it doesn't suddenly make those people more capable of doing it if it's any of the categories I just listed. And that's always more important than whatever your item level sync is going to be, especially on old stuff. Hashtag Mr. Sphere Grid. What? I don't even play. I haven't played Final Fantasy X since the marathon, which isn't that long ago, to be fair. How's it going? It's going all right. How are the cats? Aloha just lurched over into the kitchen. Where's Ivy? Oh, Ivy's back there on the couch. You can barely see her, just sleeping right there. Look at that. Yeah, she's having a nice cat nap. If you could have one weapon from DMC5 added to 14 as glam, which would it be? The Red Queen for Gunbreaker? That's such an easy choice, though. I'd want something more fun than that. Give me the hat. Give me the hat as the dual hats as a dancer weapon. That one. There you go. That's the one that I want. I want the throwing hat. So that is way overpowered as long as you have the red orbs for it. I don't even remember the name of like half the weapons. There's what? The King Cerberus, the Red Queen, the Rebellion, Demon Sword or Devil Sword, Dante. Obviously the Sparta Sword. You have the Yamato, of course. Which, I don't even know if people would be able to tell. Yeah, no, I want the hat for dancer. This one didn't have a hashtag, but I saw that it said, "Hey, Mr. Happy," so I decided to stop and read it. And because I don't think there's that many questions this week. Hey, Mr. Happy. Hi. Quick YouTube question. Okay. What audio software do you use? What editing software do you use? So I don't use any audio software most of the time. Occasionally, I run something through Audacity, but most of the time I record audio right in whatever my editing software is. And at the moment, my editing software is Sony Vegas. I messed around a little bit with Premiere for something a couple months ago, and there's just some things that really drive me crazy about Premiere. From an initial learning standpoint, it's very, very unfriendly. From a maximum potential standpoint, it's massive. And yeah, so I don't know if I'll make that swap over, but yeah, that's the answer to the question directly. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, Happy. Hi. Been watching since around 5.3, but this is the first time asking. Welcome. Should we expect a job reveal at the first FanFest? No, and that actually is the video I'm recording right after this, is what to expect from the very first FanFest. Endwalker was a bit of a special case with only 2 presentations instead of 3, so I don't know how the previous expansion reveals went. No, at most we get like a teaser. So what they'll say is new job or jobs. So they've put a lot of emphasis on the plural because I think they know everybody sort of guesses that there's not going to be multiple. So they like to make sure if there are going to be multiple that they say jobs, and there have been multiple every expansion. So that's going to be the first thing we're listening to is new job and or jobs. If it's just new job, they'll probably stop and explain why it's only one job. And I think that's bound to happen eventually, but who knows if it'll be this expansion or another. And then maybe a reveal where like Yoshi P says like, oh, I really like this anime, or he most of the time has a shirt on that teases a job that is to come. So the t-shirt meme will probably continue to be the case. I hit a 007 one for Machinist, and he had that, he had those like heavy metal style ones for Reaper, for example. One had literally like a Grim Reaper on it and like a few other things. So yeah, that's what you're looking for. Shirt and mention of the plural or singular. Bonus question for you in the comment section. What jobs do you think we could get? I think answering that question has no merit whatsoever. The reason being, there is no reason, nothing in game, nothing at all that how do I put this? That would suggest us any job. There's literally nothing. You can guess the roles, most likely caster, and of course then some people are fighting between Fizz Ranged or Scouting. I do think if we get 2 jobs, it's a double DPS expansion. But actually guessing a job or a theme or any, it's more like throwing a dart at a dartboard than it is making an educated guess. Like it's a wish list, and that's fine. People can say, I hope we get X or Y or Z. As long as it's kind of within the prediction parameter and it makes sense, you know, it's no biggie, right? But to say, oh, it's gonna be this, oh, it's gonna be Geomancer, because like there's no reason to say that. There's no smart way to incorporate that. It's a reach. Doesn't mean you'll be wrong. You could be right with whatever you predict, but it's not a prediction that comes out of context or anything of the sort. It's literally just an out of thin air, I said this thing and it happened to be right, which I've seen people do before. So it's just a matter of seeing how many people do it this time. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hello, 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 Haps. Hello, hello, hello. Fun question for you. I'll be the judge of that. Who are your 3 favorite Final Fantasy Pro tags and why? 11 and 14 excluded. That's okay, because 11 and 14 wouldn't have been on the top 3 anyway. My number 1 is Shadow from Final Fantasy VI. Clyde, not Clive, as we've come to say. Well, I say he is my favorite. That might be a was as of late. So he's the first one that comes to mind because it's my most usual answer. I like the conflict that he has. I think he's just enigmatic enough with enough of the bonus scenes to kind of let you fill in the pieces of his like kind of inner turmoil and his character as a whole. And I like the way that it's told almost Souls style, where if you really want to know everything about this character, it's kind of deep and hidden inside of the game, and you may or may not experience it. And for me, that's actually one of Final Fantasy VI's strengths. If you use certain characters a lot, you're more likely to have encountered sort of all of their backstory elements, and Shadow's kind of probably the best example of that. The reason why I say he may not be up there is because while Clyde was number 1, I think Clive might become number 1. I love most of the characters in 16, I think, are better than most of the characters we've had across the rest of the entire franchise. And that's, I don't say that mildly, because even though we have like characters that are written or translated really weirdly from the olden days, a lot of them have carried on and managed to become more whole over time, especially as like reimaginings and re-envisionings or stuff like Dissidia, even just giving them a more presentable personality or voice. Even with the Dissidia games, has actually helped a lot of characters, I think, that haven't yet had another opportunity to be done that way, or done like, you know, Cloud and 7 Remake or anything like that. So Clive, I think, if I'm just going to pick the protagonist, like the main person who's, you know, supposed to be the front cover, then, or at least somebody who's like, I guess you could go with Jill, you know, you could go with any of the other 16 characters as well. I think so. A lot of people would probably take Sid, but I think as like someone closer to being the main person, I think Clive might end up there. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a lot of dimensions to the character that make sense in retrospect from what Ben was saying in like pre-release interviews and stuff. So he's probably up there. As for number 3, that's kind of tough. I'm a huge Vivi simp. Even though I'm not a big fan of Final Fantasy IX, I feel like Hope gets a lot of... I can't stand the way people treat Hope in Final Fantasy 13 because they have no empathy or sympathy. It's like, I can understand sometimes you kind of get why a character is in a game or why they're designed the way that they are, and it's still not entertaining to you. But man, when what is he, 14? When like a teenager, you know, is swept up into a war, watches his mom fall to her death as she fights for a cause that she feels is right, watches the man who pulled her into that thing as he tries to act like a brave hero when he's actually kind of just like a coward and overcompensating coward. Everything that Hope went through was so frustrating and overwhelming, and he handles it like a champ. He takes a little while to get there through the trauma, but that kid grows up to be ultra successful and tries to change the future and all sorts of stuff. I think he's a great character, and I think in retrospect, looking back at 13's entire character sheet, the way that somebody said it in a Twitter comment when I posted something about Hope and how people vastly mistreat him given how well designed of a character he is, just because they don't like a kid who doesn't instantly resolve their problems, and instead it's, you know, while you're piecemeal being told the story from 2 or 3 different perspectives, takes several chapters before he finally confronts his trauma and gets over it. And I remember somebody saying that Final Fantasy 13 handles how to deal with death by proxy, like based on like the environment you're in and the people that you're around, and how they can either help or hurt your ability to deal with trauma, or you know, post-traumatic stress disorder, or any sort of just association with death that people deal with. So yeah, I think that, while I don't think that necessarily Hope would be in the top 3, like I don't think he would be my 3rd favorite in this list. I just want to take the opportunity now to say that that kid gets way more grief than he should get, given how well written he in particular is. Even if 13 as a whole, Hope deserves some damn respect. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey there, Mr. Happy. Hi. Hope you're having a great Monday. Me too. I might be doing some 14 on Monday after the shuffler. Actually, yeah, because it depends on if I hit the goals or whatnot in the streamathon. My friend and I were talking about blind progging the next criterion when it comes out, and got us thinking, what was the hardest mech to ever blind prog for you? I know it's a lot of fights to think back on, but you're really curious. You know, that actually is tough, because a lot of mechanics are very similar to one another, and I have to think back to like Alexander days realistically for that. You know, it's funny though, because when I think of some blind mechanics, I think of stuff like Rafflesia's Blighted Bouquet, because it took a while for anyone to realize that was simply don't move, don't take an action. And then I remember the Meliusine launch days, but we were way worse at the game back then. So when I look at mechanics that are really tough, I have to look either at Gordius or post Gordius, because that kind of took every player that survived that and put them on another level. Blind prog. It might just be Nisi, like from Manipulator. I think figuring that out and how to get the movement down and how to get everyone on the same page to do Nisi completely correctly, which I have done, even though I've cleared the fight, even though I initially cleared the fight without doing it correct, I have done it correct, and I have gotten through that phase correctly, even on, you know, prog in the initial like 4 to 5 weeks. I think it's Nisi. I think original OG non-cheese Nisi from Manipulator might be the most difficult blind prog. To go from that through Royal Pentacles all the way to the end of the fight, it's just, it's on a whole nother level that I don't think anyone has experienced or will experience. Even doing like Brute Justice and Ultimate level stuff like T and DSR on top, it just doesn't really compare to that same experience. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hi, Haps. Hi. I have a question about getting into endgame content for 14, mostly related to endgame content. Huh? I want to do Savage Rating, but don't know where to start. Party Finder. I mean, you just got to get enough crafted gear, meld it. I would say at least over meld it a single time to make sure that it's all grade 8s, and then just look up guides and hop in a Party Finder. Learning parties. That's it. There's really no other reason to try to enter it, in my opinion, any other way, because that is the most, like, I would say if anything, start with Extreme Trials and then go into Savage, maybe Extreme and Unreal and then go into Savage. But it's still the same plan, you know, get enough gear, look up a guide, and then just try. Because like you're never gonna get anywhere just waiting for it to work out or happen. You just gotta go. That's all there really is to it. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hello. Hi. Curious whatever happened to the typical spoiler. Okay. So actually, I do have an answer for this. You and Slide did your 6.4 spoiler-free thoughts. There was never a spoiler-filled thoughts theory. That was because I went to London. Well, actually, no. That was because of Final Fantasy 16. We did do one for 6.2. I don't think we did one for 6.3 because after top, I just didn't want to do it. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Okay, so originally it was a really easy way to schedule spoiler-related episodes because we just would say, hey, Ethos, you know, new patch is coming out, we're doing this. And he, of course, wanted to do it because he really enjoyed doing this episodes. Then we would do, you know, we'd do Air Zivia and whatnot. When Ethos stopped doing content, we had to reach out to new people, and I really struggled with that. We did bring Pyro on for one, and that was a pretty fun episode. I know Pyro's gone, you know, he's kind of just been working on himself a lot ever since, and he was working on himself then and now. So, you know, we haven't had him back on as a guest because, you know, I know how people feel. I, for one, just can't be worried about all that stuff. I don't even want to get into it. And then I also just always felt bad asking Anonymous because he was always on Mog Talk. And so I didn't want to be like, oh, well, you know, Mog Talk just had on Anonymous. Maybe we should have on somebody who's not Anonymous. And besides, I don't want to bother him. I don't know what his schedule is like, blah, 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 blah. And finally, I got over that and asked him, and he was super thrilled. And we had him on the show. Like, you'll see that we just had it. But that was really the majority of it. Was just we could have asked Moose a billion times over, and I just always felt bad because he was always on Mog Talk, and I didn't want to just I didn't want to just be like, oh, Mog Talk got him, let's get him too, kind of. Like, I didn't want it to be perceived that way. But finally got over that, asked him, and it was great. So hopefully you enjoyed the 6.4 spoiler episode. And we already spoke to him. He said he'd love to be on more episodes like that in the future, so long as he has time. So expect all that to continue. Hashtag bring back Butcher's Block. That's a lot of B's. Animation Mondays with Mr. Happy. Ayo, Haps. Ay. Not a spoiler question, but with how the few recent FF titles have veered away from traditional RPG elements, would you call 16 a traditional RPG, or would it be safe to call it an action game? Action RPG. Simple. Action RPG has become like the widest, most abused, I think, genre of game, because they all have some form of RPG element, and that's where they get the name, but they are more about the action than the RPG elements, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be weighted 50-50. But yeah, no, action RPG for sure would be what I would call traditional. Traditional RPG gets its name from the way RPGs were released. You know, D&D, rolling dice, turn-based. Like that's traditional, because that's all that could be achieved back then. It's almost classic RPG more than traditional, because traditional kind of almost like updates every like year or two as like RPGs try to come up with something that's slightly different than the games that came before it, while still being exactly what people kind of expect of it, if that makes sense. But no, 16 action RPG. Definitely. I would go in that front. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Howdy, Haps. Hi. Hope you and the fur babies are doing great. Honestly, Aloha has been like ultra energetic as of late. He's been kind of annoying me in the process, but either way, I'm glad to see him kind of up and about and like way more energy as of late. I don't know what's causing it. Shadowbringer spoilers for this question. It's so old, I don't care. Patch 5.4, Alice A is able to find a cure to tempering, which is the biggest problem facing the source. My question is, how do you feel that something of that magnitude was relegated to a patch questline as opposed to an expansion questline? I mean, it's a crucial... Okay, here's the big thing. Until Endwalker, pretty much the way that almost every expansion or story works is the expansion itself wraps up by point 3, and the details that happen after are leading into important elements that the expansion is going to need. That is pretty much what that is. That is basically if this has never happened, Endwalker can never happen because of the events that take place there. So I look at it as kind of like one of the first revelations of Endwalker, because it is post 0.3 patch. And that's true. That won't be true here. It was not true in 6.4. It will not be true. We have no idea how they're going to structure story stuff for like 0.1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 after 6.x. But for the time being, that's our norm. That's what we've come to expect. That's what we have experienced. And this time I felt like that was apt. I'm glad that we solved it then, because imagine with the density of Endwalker also solving it in Endwalker. That's how I think about it. And I feel like, oh man, it was already so crammed with so many things. And it wasn't so much rushed as much as it was completely logical based on things we had already seen, and things that had already been studied by the characters. And then, we just come to that revelation and test it, but we don't have applicable uses for it yet. We can only kind of we can only kind of prove that it works in some cases, and then that builds like a foundation with which it can be utilized in other ways. I thought it was good. So yeah, that's it. That's the best way to think about it, is that the old 0.4 patches act as beginnings. Now, I do say that you finished 5.55. I don't think I said, like, you haven't actually done Endwalker. I don't think I said anything that was too spoilery in that, but that's just how you have to think about the 0.4 patches as a whole. So think about it that way, and it doesn't necessarily spoil anything, but it answers the important part of the question. I saw a really long one that I think I'll answer really quick after this. This is the very final comment on the video. 12 hours ago, as a matter of fact. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Howdy, Haps. Hi. So I stumbled across an excellent 9-year-old rant on your channel about MMORPGs and how new MMOs had to struggle against the behemoth that was World of Warcraft. In the video, you said that if an MMO was too similar to WoW, it would fail just by nature of WoW's head start, popularity, and IP strength. If it was too different, though, they would struggle to keep players because of how afraid people are of change. So now that so much time has passed from the original rant, what do you think about the current state of innovation in the MMORPG genre? In what ways can MMOs innovate and still succeed? Well, if I had the answer to how MMOs could innovate, I would probably be a part of making one. So I'm not gonna be arrogant and think that I have that answer. So we're gonna cut that part out right now. As for the state of things, we also always said back then that the only thing that would kill World of Warcraft was World of Warcraft. And you know what? I think that's proven even more true in recent years. I still think that that's the general problem, but I will say this, the MMO community, it feels like, has finally understood something very, very important, in that you do not need to play the most popular MMO all the freaking time. A lot of people had this like sunken cost fallacy with World of Warcraft, and I feel like Classic coming out kind of did away with that, because a lot of people had to start over, and it just kind of changed their perspective of what it means. Like what is really the cost, the sunken cost of your character. So we saw a lot of people branching out to other MMOs because outright World of Warcraft wasn't doing it. 14 was a huge beneficiary of that, still is, as a matter of fact. And I bet a bunch of other MMOs are too. We've seen Lost Ark come and potentially go, because Lost Ark looks like it's a disaster again now. And, you know, we just see like all the, you know, it's just more flavor of the month MMOs pop up. Some of those classic MMOs that have been in development for like 9 years, like Pantheon and Ashes of Creation and stuff, still pretending like they're ever going to release. I don't even know what to think of all that. But I don't think much has changed other than people being more comfortable with finding homes in MMOs that are not as big. And what's hilarious about that is that that is a complete return to form for MMOs. Before World of Warcraft, you had EverQuest with a few 100,000 players. You had Final Fantasy 11 with a few 100,000 players. You had the occasional like Korean MMO with people who would like hop between them, like Silk Road Online, Hero Online. You know, you had Fliff. It was like, that was the true generation of the Korean MMO hop fest. Nowadays, you try doing that, it's way less satisfying, because they're way less innovative. They're way more copy paste, release this, get the money from the whales, then release another with the same assets, blah, 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 with no innovation, no, very, very, very limited interesting design. Sometimes they're interesting. I think there was one that I did a sponsored video for that was genuinely impressive. I don't remember what it was called, but it had like a Final Fantasy VII style world map and a mount, and you had to go to the individual zones similar to Final Fantasy VII, and when you went in them, then they became a traditional third-person MMORPG like World of Warcraft and stuff. And I thought that was a really, really cool take on that. It had a lot of the class and job, multi-classing and jobbing from Final Fantasy XIV. It took some of the better ideas from across RPG genres, but it was a copy-paste Korean MMO and was completely lost to all time and space. But I have the videos somewhere on my channel, and I still think that was one of the biggest shocker, like random MMOs that did a great job at actually showing me how an MMO can be innovative still, while taking from the things that make other games successful. But I don't think anything's changed in the MMO genre for the most part, other than World of Warcraft murdering itself over time and people just losing interest in it as a whole thing. But I don't think MMOs even replaced the popularity of it. I think it's also the rise of things like battle royales and FPS. I think the renaissance of those style of games, or at least how much they have affected the renaissance of first and third person shooters, have propelled that into it was always like kind of in the top spot, but like I feel like it's reached out and hooked into more people than it was, even more so, which is crazy. And I think that's really been what's replaced MMOs. Things like Destiny and things like Apex and Fortnite and all that. As much as you hate to hear it because you don't want to associate MMOs with those experiences, the fact of the matter is that that's where most people spend their time nowadays, are in those style of games. So if there's less people playing MMOs, most likely they're playing these things instead. So it's been an interesting shift as companies look for games that can quickly grab attention and desperately try to hold on to it, and which ones can and can't do it, because that's really what you're vying for nowadays versus a premier experience of a specific genre of game. It's an incredibly in-depth and layered conversation to have that I don't think I can properly have as just a small answer in this video. I would really need to be having a direct discussion, like roundtable style, with individual points, like everyone bringing individual points to the table. And that's not what I'm doing right now. So with that being said, I think that's the best answer I could kind of lean towards. All right, and then there's just a few other comments here, and then that one like really long one that I think was clarifying something from last week's question. The beard is driving me wild. Well, it won't anymore because it's gone. It was driving me crazy. I was like, oh, I need to trim this, and then by the time it was so long, I'm like, let me just get rid of it. Improved a lot. Thanks. Just watch you ask yourself if you pushed this or not. Yeah, and then I don't think I had. I think I had to press send to send it. If you like turn-based RPGs, play Legend of Dragoon. Yeah, I mean, that's a classic. Dude, I'll say this. I've tried playing. I say tried. I'm almost done with it. Chained Echoes I started this week, kind of in between like 16 and my Streamathon. And you know what? It's okay. There's a lot of things I don't like about it. I think it's incredibly impressive that basically one person made it outside of like the music and I think a couple of other things. But the overdrive system, I'm not a fan of. I really don't like Sky Armors either. And then overdrive in the Sky Armors, I think is like the worst experience in the game by far. Now, fortunately, I got to give the developer credit because he gives you the ability to adjust how much you want the overdrive to kind of, you know, get messed around with. And I think that's smart. See, that impresses me more than the fact that I don't like the system. That impresses me more than me not liking the system, because even though I'm leaving it on default to get, you know, close to the intended experience, just so I can like judge it on that basis, the fact that that setting is even there is insightful and considerate of different people, and that is something you don't see in turn-based RPGs. So that I'm very, very impressed by. But I find it okay. I don't think it's the god tier turn-based RPG that people tried to almost convince me that it was. I think some of it's just like, you know, like the writing is kind of weird and some points, really, really weird at some points. Although that's really early on, that kind of behavior goes away later in the game. Like it's maybe a little more focused, but maybe it comes back at some point. I don't know. I think the side content, I think the progression systems are all really good. Yeah, it's just the overdrive and the Sky Armor, and then some of the writing. Everything else is good. But I'm not like crazy about it because you interact with the overdrive and the Sky Armors a lot. There's also some other things that I had, but I'm going to leave that out. So just, I would recommend the game still because it's only $20 right now and it's $25 normally. I think the value on the game is also insane. 20 to $25 for that game, whether it's when it's not on sale, 25 USD, when it is on sale, 20. That's insane. That game should be like $40, like minimum. Like even if I don't like certain things, that is easily like, if it was worth $40, I would still recommend it. Like guaranteed. And besides, most turn-based RPGs have like weird things like that. Like they all do. It's just a matter of how much you like, don't like, are annoyed by, or are okay with any sort of RPG's game systems. You know, like I hate Chrono Crosses. Some people love it. You know, it's whatever. That's just is what it is. So, yeah, that's been an interesting experience. And if you like turn-based RPGs, I can recommend it at the very least. I think other people will like it more than me, despite those things. But they might still like acknowledge that they're not a huge fan of them or didn't like them too much, but it didn't stop them from really enjoying the game. And then the really long thing was just clarifying. Asked that the horizontal vertical question I asked next week is, could 14 benefit from more horizontal progression? And more so that they don't need Final Fantasy 11 style horizontal progression. They just need more gear options. That only works if it's closer to being something like traditional horizontal. If anything, you need more options to get the gear that's already in the game versus needing more gear options, because the gear is going to be very straightforward no matter what. So it still becomes kind of about what is the best. And if it's not, then you don't want it. That being said, I don't think it would hurt to have like more item level 660 gear. For example, like if Criterion gave 660 gear, like brand new, even if it's not best, cool. I'm glad somebody will want that. Somebody will see that as an upgrade, and it may motivate them to try the content. But in terms of how useful it would be from like a character building perspective, not really. And I think that's when horizontal progression is more powerful, when it actually offers a choice and isn't just to make sure you have a reward for more things. And that's what I think 14 would be doing with horizontal if it did. If it was just still like, oh, it's all crit, spell speed, you know, determination, direct hit, like if it's still all those stats and it's just more options along the side, then yeah, it pretty much just serves to make sure there is maybe a reason to still do a piece of content. And yeah, I think that's better than not having it, I suppose. And that's a big problem Criterion had. So sure. Yeah. I mean, if that's what that person meant, then sure. But if they actually wanted like real horizontal progression that is like more in depth and has, again, those individual different types of options and effects, wouldn't happen. So I don't know. For me, it's not even worth thinking about past that point. Anyway, that is going to be a wrap for this week's episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. I managed to stretch my answers out long enough to get to about the same length episode as last week. So glad I managed to do that because I deliberately ran my mouth more to make that happen. If you have a question, be sure to ask it in the comment section of the video below. If you asked the question last week, thank you for asking. I apologize if you asked it on Sunday. Please ask it again for next week and ask it as soon as possible to make sure that it's in there. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Be sure to tune into the Streamathon every day from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. until it ends. Whenever that will be. And don't worry, I won't be missing gym days. Actually, I might still go to the gym today. I was going to take, today's supposed to be my off day, and then tomorrow's supposed to be leg day because it's the first day of the Streamathon. I'm thinking maybe I'll do leg day today and off day tomorrow, and then push day on Monday, and then pull day on Tuesday. And I could just go to the gym in the evening. It's fine. I'll be okay. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap. So thanks for watching, and be sure to go watch all the videos I post this week as well. Until then, you have a good one. Take care.